Hello, people, and welcome to the show. It is Tuesday night, and of course, that means it's International Tuesday. And we have some interesting headlines to cover today. But before I get to that, thank you so much for joining the show. Thank you for spreading the word. And if there are topics that you really hope that I cover, something that is really on your mind, please leave a comment or reach out to us at the show that we have on the Patreon channel, and we will be glad to take it up. You may or may not know, I do have two cats. One is named Ziggy, one is named Milo. And from time to time, Ziggy and Milo like to visit me while I am recording the show. So if you see the laptop kind of moving around, that's probably because one of the kitties has decided to make his presence known. The other thing you might notice is that I am wearing a baseball cap. And there are actually two reasons for me to wear this cap. The first reason is very simply that I want to reclaim ownership of the red hat. I've owned this hat for many years and I love this hat. And unfortunately, for the last 4+ years, every time I see a red hat, I kind of have a little post-traumatic stress. And so I've just had this negative association and connotation with red hats. And I think it's time that we put that behind us. You can have a really good red hat like this one. The other reason I'm wearing the hat is because it's spring, and spring means baseball. Now, I am not the world's biggest baseball fan, but I will say this. My father and I were inaugural Washington Nationals season ticket holders when they moved from Toronto to Washington, D.C. And so Washington Nationals is my baseball team. And there has been some great success there. They've actually won the World Series recently, so yay! But there are also a lot of disappointment amongst those Nationals. So, needless to say, they are exactly what most baseball teams are. Great joy and great heartache to their fan base. So the hat is here to say, hey, I'm reclaiming the red hat. It doesn't have to belong to crazies all the time. And I'm ready for baseball, spring. I'm ready for the new season, and I hope spring's eternal. And so that's why I brought the hat out for today. Go Nats, and let's start spring in a strong and positive footing. So the first topic I want to talk about today is about AR-15s. Because they were in the news again. Sadly, it is not good news. It is extremely bad news. Yesterday, we talked about a shooting that happened the night before. Tonight, we're talking about a different shooting, right? And again, America is reeling from yet another mass shooting. Now, I want to talk about AR-15s because some of you may have seen commentary from Lauren Boebert and others saying, hey, you don't even know what the AR and AR-15 stands for. How are you qualified to talk about guns? I'm not qualified to talk about guns. I'm not trying to educate you on rifles. I'm trying to stop people from being killed. So, for those who are gun fetishists out there, I don't want to dig deep into the specs of your favorite weapon. I want to keep that weapon out of the hands of civilians because it was designed as a weapon of war. Now, those of us who've been warriors, those of us who have put on a uniform, have been in war zones, those people who know about what those weapons were designed to do know that they were designed to put down as many humans as possible without the possibility of them getting back up. That means that they are designed to do maximum damage to human tissue. Now, what on earth could be your reason for having a weapon like that, other than you just like having it? It is not for hunting of animals. It is not for sport hunting. And it's not for self-defense, unless you think you have to defend yourself against Attila the Hun and his hordes. The reality is that if America got invaded by a hostile force, we have military for that. If there was a serious uprising, we have police for that. There's no reason for a civilian to have a weapon that is designed for war. And that is the bottom line. I don't care what AR and AR-15 stands for. I know it doesn't stand for assault rifle. It stands for armor light. I don't care. It actually just stands for enough is enough. We don't care about your little preferences for what you call your weapons. I don't care if you want to get bogged down into the specs of the weapon. The bottom line is this thing can take out a city block. And if you were to shoot an intruder with an AR-15, there's a high likelihood that you would kill everybody in your building or in your neighborhood. This is not a weapon that you keep for close-in combat. This is not a weapon that you use for sport hunting. This is not a weapon that you use for personal defense or defensive property, right? This is a weapon that you use to hunt humans. And there is a context in which we do precisely that, and that context is called combat. But what we do is we put weapons of combat in the hands of people who feel small, who feel disconnected from reality, who are suicidal, who are enraged, who are incels, who are psychotic, or who are just racist, evil, or angry. And then cross our fingers and toes and hope that they don't go off. Well, yesterday, once again, somebody walked into an establishment with an AR-15 and shot a whole bunch of people. Now, don't tell me that it wasn't the gun that killed those people, that it was the person who pulled the trigger. Yeah, if he pulled the trigger on a toy gun, they'd still be alive. If he pulled the trigger on a knife, they'd still be alive. If they pulled the trigger on a handgun, most of those people would still be alive. We gave him the mechanism, the capability to take out as many humans as possible, which is the same capability we gave to the shooter in Newtown and Parkland and Aurora and so many other places. And aren't we sick of it by now? I don't care about the profits of the Armor-like company. I don't care. And that is really what the NRA protects, their profits through their bought and paid for politicians. It is high time that we get these weapons out of civilian hands. Now, there are a few ways that we can do this. The hard way is to pass legislation that bans weapons like that. I think, it's important that we do that, but that's actually a frontal assault on the problem. And sometimes a frontal assault gets obstructed by the political backlash on the front side. But there is another way to skin this cat. Because the companies that make AR-15s and weapons like that, their biggest customer base is not civilians. Their biggest customer base is the military and, law enforcement departments across the country. So, interestingly enough, by executive order, the President of the United States could forbid the United States military from doing business with any weapons company that sells AR-15s or assault weapons for civilian purposes. Right? You do business with them, you don't do business with us. And that would put those manufacturers in a very awkward situation, would it not? Because then they'd have to decide, do they want those big government contracts or do they want to service the civilian population? Because you can't do both. And the funny thing is, you don't even need congressional approval to do that. You could just do that. And you know what? I think that would reduce gun deaths very, very quickly. So, this is my proposal. My proposal is that we build a movement to convince the Biden administration to prohibit the military from buying weapons from any manufacturer that sells assault weapons for civilian purposes. And I think that's a pretty easy thing to pull off because Congress can't do anything to stop Joe Biden from signing that executive order. What do you think?
If you like what you just heard, you can find out so much more and hear so much more on my Patreon channel, patreon.com/PamKeithFL. That's where you hear the rest of this discussion, and there's lots more to share.